Season 2, Episode 8 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage is one of the most emotionally charged chapters of the season, taking what appears to be a minor parenting challenge and turning it into a multi-layered generational clash. The episode, revolving around Cece's sudden biting habit, uses humor and tension to peel back deeper issues between Mandy and her mother Audrey. By the time the story reaches its chaotic climax with a messy, multicolor argument broadcast live on a radio show, the true central conflict is clear. Mandy isn't simply trying to discipline her daughter. She's fighting for recognition, respect, and the right to define her own values as a mother. Everything begins with a familiar parenting nightmare. Cece bites another child at the park. Mandy responds with empathy-led discipline, encouraging emotional awareness and verbal communication rather than punishment. She kneels to Cece's level, explains why biting hurts, and tries to redirect the behavior with understanding instead of fear. It's a modern, gentle approach, one Mandy carefully picked up from the parenting guide she's been relying on since she became a first-time mom. She's not just reacting to Cece, she's consciously shaping the kind of home she wants to build. Audrey, however, immediately rejects Mandy's method. She sees calm correction as weak and ineffective, arguing that toddlers require firm consequences to learn right from wrong. Her proposed solution, biting the child back to teach the lesson, lands like an emotional bomb. It shocks Mandy, who can't believe Audrey ever did that to her, let alone thinks it's something to repeat on her granddaughter. This moment reveals everything about their underlying dynamic. Mandy's parenting style is grounded in self-awareness and gentleness, while Audrey's worldview is shaped by the harsher, authority-driven methods of her generation. The divide deepens when Cece later bites Mandy herself, an incident that leaves Mandy hurt, overwhelmed, and desperate for solutions. Audrey's reaction is almost smug, interpreting the meltdown as evidence her daughter's soft approach has failed. Instead of compassion, Mandy receives judgment. Audrey's inability to see her daughter's pain, or acknowledge her effort, is a wound compounded by years of feeling dismissed. Mandy tries another strategy from her parenting books, a role reversal empathy exercise meant to teach Cece emotional consequences. But the technique collapses comically when Cece delights in the reenactment instead of learning from it. To Audrey, this is proof that Mandy is floundering. The episode's turning point arrives when Mandy discovers that Audrey secretly followed through on her earlier threat and bit Cece after another park incident. This is where everything shifts. The conflict stops being about technique, behavior, or even philosophy. Audrey has crossed a boundary Mandy didn't even know she needed to defend, the right to parent her own child without interference. Mandy feels deceived, humiliated, and stripped of authority in her daughter's life. For Mandy, the biting is more than discipline. It's an echo of the painful parenting she endured growing up. For Audrey, it's simply what works. Overwhelmed and betrayed, Mandy leaves and seeks refuge at Mary's house. But instead of comfort, she finds another layer of pressure. Mary, trying to help in her well-meaning but sometimes overbearing way, gently attempts to coach Georgie and Mandy about firmer boundaries and traditional discipline. Mandy begins to feel like she's failing from every angle. Her mother sees her as incompetent, and Georgie's family seems to think the same, even if they phrase it more delicately. This makes her question her entire identity as a mother. Not because her methods don't work, but because she feels no one believes in them long enough to let them. Meanwhile, Audrey feels wronged, unappreciated, and misunderstood. In her eyes, she was protecting Cece and helping Mandy avoid embarrassment. She believes Mandy is overreacting and not acknowledging the years of experience Audrey brings as a mother and grandmother. The episode cleverly shows that Audrey's confidence is a mask. She is terrified of being irrelevant, of no longer being the family's anchor, and of losing the authority she once held unquestioned. The final explosion happens on Family Spotlight, the radio show Audrey co-hosts. Mandy calls in, hoping to vent to a neutral parenting expert, but the conversation takes a sharp turn when she mentions the biting incident. Audrey, listening from the studio, jumps onto the call to defend herself, sparking a verbal tug-of-war between the two. What follows is a comedic yet painfully honest unraveling of family tension, as Mary, Will, and Georgie get pulled into the on-air dispute. Each person tries to justify their position, but the debate quickly loses focus and dissolves into overlapping criticisms, defensive justifications, and generational finger-pointing. This chaotic public argument accomplishes something no private conversation could. It exposes the emotional core of the conflict. Mandy wants acknowledgement that she is capable, competent, and allowed to mother in her own way. Audrey wants affirmation that her old-school values still matter and that she hasn't been pushed aside by new parenting trends. Both women feel threatened, both feel unheard, and both want the same thing, connection, but lack the tools to meet each other halfway. The episode closes without a neat resolution, but with a clear thematic truth. This family cannot move forward until Mandy and Audrey address the deeper hurt beneath their disagreements. What makes this episode stand out isn't the comedy of the biting storyline, but the raw honesty behind the generational tension. Parenting becomes the battlefield, but the war is about identity, respect, and the evolving definition of motherhood.